25 black musicians you didn't know were gay. Then and now, 2026. What if the voice behind your favorite love song was hiding a truth the world wasn't ready to hear? For decades, some of the most iconic black musicians lived double lives, singing about passion while forced to conceal their own. In this eye-opening video, we reveal 25 legendary artists you didn't know were part of the LGBTQ+ community. Their stories are bold, heartbreaking, and long overdue. Ready to uncover the truths behind the music? Hit that like button, subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence, and join us as we honor the hidden legacies that changed music forever. Little Richard. Born Richard Wayne Penniman on December 5, 1932 in Macon, Georgia. Little Richard exploded onto the music scene in the 1950s with an energy that rewrote the rules of performance and personality. His groundbreaking hit Tutti Frutti in 1955 wasn't just a chart topper, it was a cultural detonation. With its pounding piano, electrifying vocal delivery, and sexually charged presence, the track sold over 1 million copies and helped birth a new genre, rock and roll. But behind the glitter makeup and on-stage flamboyance was a man battling deep inner turmoil. Raised in a devoutly Christian household, Richard's queerness was a lifelong point of tension. He openly expressed attraction to men in interviews, but often wavered in public statements at times, condemning homosexuality, later embracing it again. This contradiction reflected a deeper spiritual and societal struggle, intensified by the era's homophobia and racism. Despite his enormous impact, his influence cited by icons like Elvis Presley, James Brown, and the Beatles, Little Richard faced persistent marginalization due to his race and gender expression. He repeatedly left the music industry to preach only to return, unable to ignore the stage's magnetic pull. In 1986, he was among the first inductees into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1993, and continued performing into his 70s. Richard died on May 9, 2020, at age 87 from bone cancer. Though he never fully reconciled his personal identity with his public image, Little Richard's boldness helped pave the way for future generations of queer black artists to exist unapologetically. He wasn't just a musician, he was a movement, a lightning bolt that dared to scream where others whispered. His legacy is immortal. Sylvester James Jr. Born on September 6, 1947 in Los Angeles, Sylvester James Jr. was unlike anyone the music world had ever seen. Raised in a strict Pentecostal household, he found his voice early in church choirs, but his spirit couldn't be confined. Embracing femininity, falsetto vocals, and sequins, he emerged as a fearless performer during the disco boom of the 1970s. Sylvester's breakthrough came with the release of You Make Me Feel Mighty Real in 1978, a track that blended gospel-rooted vocals with pulsing electronic beats. It became an anthem not only in clubs, but across the LGBTQ+ community, celebrating liberation, sensuality, and self-worth. At a time when being openly gay could end careers, Sylvester did the opposite. He insisted on authenticity. He demanded full creative control, wore flamboyant outfits on national television, and refused to downplay his identity. Though mainstream radio often hesitated to embrace him, his popularity soared in dance clubs and among marginalized groups seeking visibility. He stood tall while others hid, becoming a cultural beacon during a time of silence. In the 1980s, Sylvester lost many close friends to the AIDS crisis. Diagnosed himself in 1986, he continued performing and advocating until his passing on December 16, 1988, at just 41. Before his death, he ensured his royalties would support HIV/AIDS organizations and requested his ashes be scattered under a pink flower, a final tribute to queer resilience. Sylvester wasn't just a disco star. He was a symbol of joy, defiance, and radical love. In a world that often tried to mute queer black voices, he sang louder, higher, and prouder than anyone dared. His influence continues to echo through the music of boundary-breaking artists today. Gertrude Bridget. Born Gertrude Pridgett on April 26, 1886 in Columbus, Georgia. Ma Rainey didn't just sing the blues, she embodied them. Known as the mother of the blues, she brought working-class black stories to life with her raw, throaty vocals and emotional honesty. Her performances in the early 1900s filled vaudeville tents and captivated audiences across the segregated South long before the recording industry caught up. Rainey began performing as a teen and adopted the name Ma after marrying fellow singer Will Rainey. But it was her solo work that made her a star. From 1923 to 1928, she recorded over 90 songs for Paramount Records, including classics like C.C. Rider and Boll Weevil Blues. Her sound was earthy and unfiltered, channeling both heartbreak and grit. But it wasn't just her music that pushed boundaries. Ma Rainey lived openly queer in a time when same-sex love was criminalized, especially for black women. She was rumored to have relationships with women in her chorus line and even faced arrest after hosting an all-female party. Rather than deny the rumors, she responded with bold lyrics. In her 1925 track, Prove It On Me Blues, she sang, "Went out last night with a crowd of my friends. They must have been women, 'cause I don't like no men." She flaunted gold teeth, extravagant gowns, and a masculine swagger that dared society to challenge her. Though she retired in 1935 and passed away from heart failure on December 22, 1939 at age 53, her influence rippled forward. Ma Rainey laid the foundation for generations of musicians and queer artists, especially to be unapologetically themselves. She didn't ask for permission. She took the stage and owned it. Her voice still roars through time, demanding to be heard. Bessie Smith, born on April 15th, 1894 in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Bessie Smith rose from poverty to become the highest-paid black entertainer of the 1920s. Her voice, rich, thunderous, and emotionally raw, made her the undeniable empress of the blues. But beyond her iconic sound was a woman who defied convention, not only in music, but in love. Signed to Columbia Records in 1923, Smith's debut recording Downhearted Blues sold over 780,000 copies in a time when racial segregation dominated every corner of American life. She performed with unmatched intensity, capturing the pain and passion of black working-class women. Her lyrics told stories of heartbreak, survival, and unapologetic desire. Smith's personal life was equally passionate. She had well-documented relationships with both men and women, an open secret among those who worked in the vaudeville circuit. Her marriage to bodyguard Jack G was stormy and marred by infidelity on both sides. Accounts from family and peers confirmed that Bessie loved women fiercely, often traveling with female companions who were more than just friends. Despite her fame, Smith faced harsh challenges. Her career declined during the Great Depression, and she struggled to adapt to changing musical tastes. On September 26, 1937, she died tragically in a car accident at the age of 43. For decades, false rumors claimed she was denied medical care because of her race, but later investigations debunked this. What remains undeniable is her cultural impact, not just as a musical pioneer, but as a queer black woman who lived on her own terms. Bessie Smith sang about the truths many were afraid to speak. She didn't just command the stage, she owned her identity in a world that tried to erase it. Billy Strayhorn, born on November 29, 1915 in Dayton, Ohio, and raised in Pittsburgh, Billy Strayhorn was a quiet revolutionary. A classically trained pianist and composer, he became the creative backbone of Duke Ellington's orchestra, shaping the very sound of 20th century jazz while living as an openly gay man in an era that offered little acceptance. Strayhorn's career-defining moment came in 1939 when he met Duke Ellington. That partnership would last nearly 3 decades, during which Strayhorn composed or co-wrote masterpieces like Take the A Train, Satin Doll, and Lush Life. His music blended elegance with deep emotional complexity, often mirroring the loneliness and longing of a man who lived in the shadows of a genre that glorified the spotlight. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Strayhorn never hid his sexuality. He lived with his male partner and moved openly within artistic and progressive circles. Duke Ellington admired and protected Strayhorn, calling him my right arm, my left arm, the eyes in the back of my head. Despite his immense contributions, Strayhorn rarely received equal public credit. He was content to let Ellington take the bow, but the lack of recognition reflected the industry's discomfort with openly gay artists, particularly black men. His music often carried coded messages, and Lush Life remains one of the most hauntingly beautiful reflections of queer melancholy ever composed. Strayhorn was also politically active, supporting civil rights efforts alongside artists like Lena Horne, and contributing to causes championed by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He died of esophageal cancer on May 31, 1967, at the age of 51. After his passing, Ellington composed the album, and his mother called him Bill as a heartfelt tribute. Billy Strayhorn may not have sought fame, but his artistry and integrity carved an eternal place in jazz history. Frankie Knuckles, born on January 18, 1955 in the Bronx. New York Frankie Knuckles wasn't just a DJ. He was a revolutionary force in modern music. Often referred to as the godfather of house, he created a genre that offered more than rhythm. It gave freedom to those living on the margins, especially Black and LGBTQ+ communities. In the late 1970s, Knuckles relocated to Chicago and began spinning records at a club called The Warehouse. The venue became legendary, giving birth to the term house music. Mixing soul, disco, gospel, and underground electronics, Knuckles crafted hypnotic tracks that made dance floors feel like sanctuaries. His remixes, such as Your Love and Baby Wants to Ride, weren't just hits. They were love letters to queer resilience and political awakening. Knuckles was openly gay throughout his life, never masking his identity, even when the industry offered little support. His quiet strength stood in contrast to his pulsating beats. He once said he didn't need to shout, his music would speak for him. And it did, with a message of inclusion, healing, and joy. In 1997, Knuckles became the first ever recipient of the Grammy for Remixer of the Year non-classical. In 2004, the city of Chicago named a stretch of Jefferson Street in his honor, Frankie Knuckles Way. He passed away on March 31, 2014, due to complications from diabetes. His funeral was attended by music legends, activists, and everyday fans who saw him as more than a DJ. He was a cultural healer. Frankie Knuckles didn't just spin records, he spun liberation. Through house music, he created a soundscape where queer people of color could be celebrated, not just tolerated. His legacy is still moving feet and hearts around the world. Johnny Mathis. Johnny Mathis, born September 30, 1935 in Gilmer, Texas, and raised in San Francisco, rose to fame as one of America's most beloved crooners. With his buttery tenor and romantic ballads like Chances Are Misty and It's Not For Me to Say, he became the voice of love across generations. By the mid-20th century, he had sold millions of records, ultimately surpassing 360 million worldwide, making him one of the best-selling artists in history. Yet despite his fame, Mathis lived with a secret that could have ended his career during its peak. He was a gay man in a time when such truths were silenced. In a 1982 interview with Us magazine, he casually acknowledged his sexuality, saying, "Homosexuality is a way of life that I've grown accustomed to." The statement was quickly retracted under pressure, and for decades Mathis kept quiet, fearful of industry backlash and fan alienation. It wasn't until the 2000s that he publicly reaffirmed his identity without apology. By then, he had already weathered years of internal conflict, watching as younger generations of queer artists gained visibility he never had. Despite this, Mathis never strayed from his craft. His voice remained a staple in American households, and he continued performing well into his 80s. In 2003, he received the Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award and was inducted into the Great American Songbook Hall of Fame. What makes Johnny Mathis remarkable isn't just his vocal longevity, it's his quiet dignity. He may not have led protests or given fiery interviews, but his mere survival in an unforgiving industry was a quiet act of courage. He showed that tenderness, grace, and queerness could coexist even in the most rigid of spaces. Johnny Mathis sang love songs for the world while quietly longing to love freely himself. Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross, born April 20th, 1951 in New York City, captivated the world with his soulful voice and timeless ballads. Songs like Never Too Much Here and Now and Dance with My Father earned him 8 Grammy Awards and a devoted global fan base. His music defined romantic R&B through the 1980s and 1990s, becoming a staple at weddings, reunions, and quiet Sunday mornings. Yet while Vandross sang about love with unmatched passion, he never publicly acknowledged his own romantic life. Despite years of speculation and quiet confirmation from close friends such as Patti LaBelle and Bruce Vilanch, Luther never openly stated that he was gay. He once said that he feared disappointing his mother and alienating his largely female audience. Privately, Vandross battled isolation and loneliness. Many of his ballads, rich with longing and emotional nuance, are now viewed as subtle reflections of the love he couldn't safely express. Unlike some of his contemporaries, he never used his platform to speak about his sexuality, but his pain found its way into the music melodies filled with beauty, yet tinged with sadness. In April 2003, he suffered a massive stroke just as he was planning a new musical chapter. Although he briefly showed signs of recovery, he passed away on July 1, 2005 at age 54. Luther Vandross left behind more than chart-topping hits. He left an emotional imprint on black music. His legacy is bittersweet, a man whose talent brought healing to millions, yet who may never have fully embraced public joy in his personal truth. Still, through his voice, he gave the world a masterclass in vulnerability. For many queer listeners, his songs feel like coded love letters, beautiful, aching, and eternal. Michelle Lynn Johnson. Born Michelle Lynn Johnson on August 29, 1968 in Berlin, Germany, and raised in Washington, D.C., Michelle Ndegeocello has always defied categorization. Her stage name, which means free like a bird in Swahili, is a fitting tribute to the way she lives, writes, and performs. A true musical shapeshifter, she's blended funk, soul, hip-hop, jazz, and spoken word into a sound uniquely her own since bursting onto the scene in the early 1990s. Her debut album, Plantation Lullabies, 1993, challenged racial stereotypes and gender norms, establishing her as a powerful, subversive voice in the neo-soul movement. Ndegeocello didn't just arrive, she shook the industry. Openly bisexual from the beginning of her career, she pushed back against pressure to conform or dilute her message. Her songs addressed everything from spiritual disconnection to homophobia, often ruffling feathers on both radio and television. Tracks like Leviticus Faggot confronted queer persecution head-on, sparking controversy, but also opening doors. Her 1996 follow-up, Peace Beyond Passion, earned a Grammy nomination and continued her legacy of fearless social commentary wrapped in haunting melodies. Despite critical acclaim and 10 Grammy nominations, Ndegeocello has often been overlooked by mainstream markets, too radical for pop, too queer for R&B radio, too honest for industry comfort. Yet her influence is undeniable. She's collaborated with icons like Madonna, John Mellencamp, and Robert Glasper, while maintaining creative independence. Beyond music, she has become a symbol of queer black womanhood in the arts. Her androgynous presentation, refusal to be boxed in, and unapologetic truth-telling have carved space for others to follow. She once said, "I don't care about fitting into boxes, I want to blow them up." Michelle Ndegeocello didn't just break molds, she melted them down and built her own genre. Her music remains a sanctuary for those who refuse to live by anyone else's rules. Christopher Edwin Breaux. Born Christopher Edwin Breaux on October 28, 1987, in Long Beach, California, the artist known as Frank Ocean didn't simply enter the music scene, he redefined it. Beginning as a behind-the-scenes songwriter for stars like Beyoncé and Justin Bieber, he stepped into the spotlight with his 2011 mixtape, Nostalgia Ultra, earning instant critical praise for his storytelling and innovation. But it was in July 2012 that Frank Ocean made history not through a song, but with a letter. Just days before the release of his debut album Channel Orange, he posted an open Tumblr entry recounting his first love with a man. In a genre traditionally steeped in heteronormativity, his candidness was both revolutionary and vulnerable. For many, it marked the first time a major black male artist in R&B and hip-hop publicly acknowledged same-sex love at the height of his career. Channel Orange debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200 and won a Grammy for Best Urban Contemporary Album. His next project, Blonde 2016, was a genre-bending exploration of identity and longing hailed as a masterpiece. Ocean's refusal to be boxed in musically or personally has since made him a symbol of quiet resistance and creative freedom. Though intensely private, Ocean's transparency helped shift the cultural dialogue. He rarely gives interviews, avoids social media trends, and lets his music speak in soft yet seismic waves. His lyrics often reflect themes of vulnerability, masculinity, and emotional intimacy, offering queer narratives with grace and nuance. Frank Ocean didn't seek to be a spokesperson, he simply told the truth. And in doing so, he created space for a new generation of queer black men to be seen not as outsiders, but as artists, lovers, and storytellers. Janelle Monáe. Janelle Monáe Robinson, born December 1st, 1985 in Kansas City. Kansas didn't walk into the music industry, she rocketed in like a time traveler from a liberated future. With her signature tuxedos, genre-defying albums, and sci-fi alter ego, Cindy Mayweather Monáe built an entire mythology where queerness, race, and rebellion weren't just allowed, they were central. Her 2007 debut EP Metropolis: The Chase Suite introduced a dystopian narrative about an android who falls in love and faces execution for it. The metaphor was clear. Monáe was coding queerness and black identity into Afro-futuristic soundscapes long before she publicly spoke about her own sexuality. That changed in 2018 when she came out as pansexual in a Rolling Stone interview while preparing to release her album Dirty Computer. The record, paired with a vibrant emotion picture, was a bold celebration of queer black womanhood. Songs like Make Me Feel and Pink became new generation anthems, playful, sensual, and proud. Dirty Computer earned a Grammy nomination for Album of the Year and elevated Monáe to icon status, not just for her artistry, but for her fearless authenticity. In 2022, Monáe came out as non-binary and now uses both she, her, and they, them pronouns. Through this evolution, they've become a public advocate for LGBTQ+ rights, gender diversity, and mental health awareness. Their fashion film roles and activism all reflect a singular vision, a world where fluidity is not only accepted, but celebrated. Monáe's work doesn't conform, it questions, it reimagines, and it dares. In an industry that often rewards predictability, Janelle Monáe remains an unpredictable force grounded in radical self-love and creative freedom. They didn't just create music, they created a movement, one that continues to empower others to live and love without labels. Montero Lamar Hill. Montero Lamar Hill, famously known as Lil Nas X, was born on April 9, 1999 in Lithia Springs, Georgia. An internet-savvy teen with a love for music and memes, he skyrocketed to fame in 2019 with Old Town Road, a country trap hybrid that smashed records, staying at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 for an unprecedented 19 weeks. But what made Lil Nas X revolutionary wasn't just his musical success, it was his bold authenticity. On June 30th, 2019, the last day of Pride Month, he came out publicly as gay via Twitter. His subtle yet powerful announcement caught many off guard, particularly in the worlds of hip-hop and country music, both of which had long-standing issues with homophobia. Rather than retreat, Lil Nas X leaned fully into his truth. In 2021, he released Montero Call Me By Your Name, complete with a music video that turned religious condemnation into self-liberation. The visuals, pole, dancing into hell, and kissing Satan sparked outrage among conservatives, but resonated deeply with LGBTQ+ youth who saw their struggle depicted with honesty and flair. His debut album, Montero, cemented his status as more than a viral star. Tracks like Industry Baby and That's What I Want merged pop confidence with personal vulnerability. He tackled love, shame, and joy while proudly wearing his queerness as armor and adornment. By embracing controversy and creating inclusive art, Lil Nas X redefined masculinity for a new generation. He proved that being black, gay, and flamboyantly yourself isn't a liability, it's a superpower. In every tweet, lyric, and outfit, Montero tells the world, authenticity is the new cool and he's not backing down. Clifford Ian Simpson. Clifford Ian Simpson, known artistically as Kevin Abstract, was born on July 16, 1996 in Corpus Christi, Texas. As the co-founder of the experimental hip-hop collective Brockhampton Abstract, became a disruptive force in a genre often resistant to open discussions of queerness, especially from black men. From the very beginning of his career, Abstract was unapologetically out. Rather than mask his identity, he embedded it into the DNA of his music. Albums like American Boyfriend, A Suburban Love Story, and Brockhampton's Saturation trilogy tackled themes of unrequited love, shame, identity, and loneliness with raw vulnerability. His lyrics didn't hint at queerness, they shouted it, weaving stories of same-sex relationships into hip-hop narratives where they had long been absent. Kevin Abstract wasn't just coming out, he was changing what masculinity could look like in rap. His boldness gave permission to others navigating similar identities in hostile cultural spaces. With a DIY approach and a keen sense of visual storytelling, he expanded Brockhampton's reach through music videos, social media, and collaborative community building. Though Abstract faced homophobia both online and within the industry, he remained firm in his mission to reflect his truth without compromise. His 2019 solo project Arizona Baby explored mental health, family estrangement, and queer romance, further cementing him as a voice for young LGBTQ+ fans who felt unseen. By refusing to code switch or soften his narrative, Kevin Abstract redefined what it means to be a queer black man in hip-hop. He didn't just open the door, he helped demolish the closet altogether. Tyler Gregory Okonma. Tyler Gregory Okonma, professionally known as Tyler. The creator was born on March 6, 1991 in Hawthorne, California. Known for his bold lyrics, eccentric fashion, and boundary-shattering albums, Tyler built a career on challenging norms and eventually himself. In 2009, Tyler gained attention as the ringleader of Odd Future, a collective known for raw, sometimes controversial content. Early critics labeled his lyrics homophobic, but as time passed, a shift began. With the release of Flower Boy in 2017, fans noticed personal confessions laced within the song's references to same-sex attraction, vulnerability, and longing. In tracks like Garden Shed and I Ain't Got Time, Tyler revealed layers of a persona previously obscured by satire and shock. He didn't explicitly label himself, but his lyrical openness about loving men marked a pivotal moment in his artistic evolution. By Igor 2019, the narrative was undeniable. An emotionally complex breakup story centered on a same-sex relationship set to genre-blending production that earned him a Grammy for Best Rap Album. Tyler's public approach to identity is often tongue-in-cheek, sarcastic, or evasive. When asked about his sexuality, he's deflected with humor or ambiguity. Yet in the music, he's clearer. Love, heartbreak, and confusion aren't filtered. He presents queerness not as a spectacle, but as a part of life's messy, beautiful fabric. Beyond music, Tyler redefined masculinity in fashion and media. His Golf Lafleur brand, colorful aesthetics, and emotionally intelligent interviews stand in contrast to his earlier shock rap image. Rather than make declarations, Tyler challenges the need for labels altogether. He represents the complexity of identity in the 21st century, fluid, evolving, and deeply human. Through authenticity and artistry, Tyler, the creator, turned introspection into cultural transformation. Freddie Ross Jr. Born Freddie Ross Jr. on January 28, 1978 in New Orleans, Louisiana, Big Freedia is more than a musician. She's a cultural force. Known as the Queen of Bounce, Freedia brought an underground Southern hip-hop subgenre to the global stage, creating space for Black queer expression through fierce beats, dance, and personality. Growing up in a Baptist household, Freedia first sang in the church choir, but it was in the city's clubs where she found her calling, blending rapid-fire rhymes with high-energy rhythms and commanding performances. Her breakout came in the early 2000s, with underground hits like Gin in My System and As Everywhere. What sets Freedia apart isn't just her music, it's her fearless authenticity. Openly queer and gender non-conforming, she has always blurred the lines between masculinity and femininity. With bold fashion, a booming voice, and unshakable presence, Freedia shattered expectations in a genre often resistant to queerness. In 2013, her reality show Big Freedia, Queen of Bounce aired on Fuse, exposing national audiences to both her music and her story. She later collaborated with global icons like Beyoncé on Formation and Break My Soul, proving her influence extended far beyond the club scene. Despite facing personal hardships, including the death of her mother and a legal challenge over housing assistance, Freedia continued to advocate for LGBTQ+ visibility, HIV awareness, and racial justice. Big Freedia didn't invent bounce, but she turned it into a revolution. Through unapologetic self-expression and undeniable talent, she redefined what it means to lead a genre, not despite her queerness, but because of it. Justin Harris. Born Justin Harris on October 8, 1993 in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Saucy Santana is a rapper, internet sensation, and beauty influencer who broke through hip-hop's glass ceiling in rhinestone-covered heels. Initially known for working as a makeup artist for the rap duo City Girls, Santana stepped out from behind the scenes in 2019 and never looked back. His debut track, Walk Em Like a Dog, went viral on TikTok, introducing the world to his bold flow, sharp wit, and fierce attitude. Quickly gaining traction with hits like Material Girl and Walk Santana, became a leading voice in a wave of openly queer Black rappers, redefining the sound and swagger of modern hip-hop. Unapologetically feminine and proudly gay, Santana has faced both praise and pushback. He's dealt with homophobic hate online and resurfaced tweets that drew criticism. Yet through it all, he's remained unshaken, doubling down on his confidence, charisma, and authenticity. Saucy Santana doesn't ask for acceptance. He demands space. His music celebrates luxury, self-love, and living loud, all delivered with a signature mix of glamour and grit. His presence on social media, where he connects directly with fans, has made him not just a rapper, but a full-fledged cultural icon. In 2022, Santana signed with RCA Records, performed on major stages, and collaborated with artists like Madonna, proving he's not a passing trend. He's here to stay. His sound mixes Southern hip-hop sensibilities with queer bravado, giving voice to communities long excluded from mainstream rap. Santana's rise represents more than success. It's a shift in who gets to be visible in hip-hop. He's proof that you can be soft and strong, flashy and fearless, queer and commanding all at once. In a world that once rejected his kind, Saucy Santana made them watch. I love McConan. Born McConan. Kamali Sharon on April 12, 1989 in Los Angeles and raised in Atlanta. Love McConan was never your typical rapper. Blending dreamy melodies with lo-fi beats and introspective lyrics, he introduced a fresh genre-blurring sound just as hip-hop was beginning to embrace experimentation. In 2014, his breakout hit Tuesday featuring Drake launched him into stardom. The song climbed to the top of the charts and earned a Grammy nomination, making McConan one of the most talked-about new artists of the moment. But while the music world was still celebrating his rise, he was grappling with a decision that could change everything. In January 2017, McConan came out as gay via Twitter. "I can't speak for other people's closets," he wrote, "but it's time for me to come out." While many fans applauded his courage, the industry's response was tepid. Collaborations dried up. Industry insiders grew distant. Support he once received quietly faded. Rather than retreat, McConnell leaned into independence. He released music on his own terms, addressing themes of identity rejection and mental health. His later projects like Drink More Water and Fun Summer 2020 revealed a more mature, self-aware artist unwilling to compromise for approval. McConnell's story is a reminder of how risky honesty can be in the spotlight and how powerful it is when wielded with purpose. His influence can be heard in a new generation of rappers who are more open, more fluid, and more fearless than ever before. He may have stepped away from mainstream shine, but I Love McConnell remains a trailblazer, one who helped change hip-hop by simply telling the truth. Josiah Wise. Josiah Wise, known by his stage name Serpent, with Feet, was born on July 9, 1988, in Baltimore, Maryland. Raised in a religious household with strong ties to gospel music, he studied classical voice and opera before transforming himself into one of the most avant-garde queer voices in R&B today. Serpent with Feet doesn't just sing about love, he deifies it. His music, filled with Baroque instrumentation, gospel overtones, and poetic lyricism, centers tender and spiritual, Black gay intimacy like no one before him. His debut EP Blisters 2016 was haunting and ethereal, while his first full-length album Soil 2018 received critical acclaim for its emotional depth and genre-defying sound. Where many queer artists are still fighting for visibility, Serpent with Feet creates worlds where queer love is already exalted. Songs like Same Size Shoe and Bless Your Heart don't plead for acceptance, they celebrate devotion. He transforms religious imagery once used to shame LGBTQ+ identities into symbols of grace, desire, and healing. In 2021, his sophomore album, Deacon, offered a softer, more joyful exploration of love. No longer cloaked in sorrow or survival, the music exhaled with contentment, radical considering how rarely Black gay men are portrayed as romantically fulfilled in media. Critics praised the project for its warmth and emotional clarity. But Serpent with Feet is more than a musician. He's a performance artist and visual storyteller. His live shows blend opera ritual and movement, immersing audiences in an almost spiritual experience. He once said, "I want to write songs that make Black gay men feel seen, not studied." In a music industry that often sidelines queer Black expression, Serpent with Feet carved out a sacred space all his own. Through vulnerability, elegance, and innovation, he turned queer love into art and art into liberation. Rashard Bradshaw. Rashard Bradshaw, known professionally as Cakes to Killa, was born on October 28, 1990 in New Jersey, and came of age in New York's underground music scene. Blending the grit of battle rap with club-ready energy, Cakes helped usher in a bold era of queer hip-hop that refused to play by old rules. With his 2013 mixtape, The Eulogy, he introduced himself as a force to be reckoned with, lyrically sharp, unapologetically gay, and fully in command. While mainstream rap often excluded openly queer artists, Cakes to Killa carved out a space with his aggressive flow, stylish confidence, and subject matter that centered same-sex attraction without apology. Hits like Goody Goodies and Don Dada turned heads for their brash delivery and clever wordplay. But what made Cakes stand out wasn't just his talent, it was his refusal to water down his identity to make others comfortable. He didn't want to be the gay rapper, he wanted to be one of the best, period. His 2022 album, Svengali, expanded his artistry further, exploring complex themes like emotional manipulation, longing, and the pressure of image in a digital world. It revealed a more introspective side without sacrificing his edge. Though never fully embraced by mainstream radio, Cakes built a loyal following among those craving authenticity. He's performed around the world, collaborated with peers across genres, and remained vocal about the need for greater inclusion in hip-hop. Rashard Bradshaw didn't ask for permission to exist. He kicked down the door with stilettos and syllables. In doing so, he proved that queer rap isn't a subgenre. It's a movement. Michael David Quattlebaum Jr. Michael David Quattlebaum Jr., widely known as Mickey Blanco, was born on April 2, 1986 in Orange County, California. A performance artist, poet, rapper, and activist, Blanco has spent the past decade blurring lines not just between music genres, but between gender art and identity itself. Emerging in the early 2010s with mixtapes like Cosmic Angel, The Illuminati Prince, SS, and Gay Dog Food. Mickey built a reputation for chaotic brilliance. Their music fused punk energy with experimental hip-hop, wrapped in a theatrical visual presentation that featured wigs, combat boots, makeup, and fury. Their performances were more than concerts, they were confrontational art pieces. Mickey identifies as gender non-conforming and uses both they, them, and she, her pronouns. They were one of the first openly gender-fluid figures in rap to gain global attention not just for being different, but for being excellent. As early as 2015, Blanco came out publicly as HIV positive, a move almost unheard of in the music world at the time. Rather than diminish their career, the announcement added another layer of authenticity and purpose to their work. Albums like Mickey 2016 and Broken Hearts and Beauty Sleep 2021 delve into vulnerability, defiance, and queer intimacy. Lyrically rich and sonically diverse, they explore trauma, desire, and spiritual survival. Mikey's collaborations span from Madonna to Kanye West, and their influence extends across music, fashion, and contemporary art. Blanco doesn't perform for acceptance, they perform as protest. Whether critiquing the exploitation of queer talent or transforming pain into performance, they refuse to shrink to fit the mold. "Don't call me brave," they once said. "Pay me." Mickey Blanco is not just a rapper. They are a living installation, a challenge to norms, and a reminder that queer Black artists have always belonged at the forefront of cultural innovation. O.J. Morgan. Born O.J. Morgan on March 15, 1987 in West Palm Beach, Florida. Zebra Cats didn't simply arrive on the music scene, he emerged from the edges of fashion, performance art, and underground culture. His breakthrough moment came in 2012, when his minimalist, menacing track Ema Reed was featured in designer Rick Owens's Paris runway show. Instantly, he became a mysterious force in hip-hop and high fashion. Zebra Cats' work draws from ballroom culture, spoken word, industrial beats, and trap, creating an experimental sound that's hard to categorize but impossible to ignore. With whispered rhymes and hypnotic bass lines, his music feels more like a performance ritual than a conventional rap track. Openly gay and fiercely independent, Morgan uses his art to challenge stereotypes about Black masculinity and queer identity. His debut album, Less Is More 2020, tackled the commodification of Black queer artists and the tension between visibility and exploitation. He doesn't sugarcoat the experience of being celebrated but not supported, a theme echoed in tracks like BLK Weekend and Aish. Despite working with legends like Gorillaz and Busta Rhymes, mainstream recognition has remained elusive, largely due to his refusal to conform. But for Zebra Cats, success isn't measured by radio plays. It's about creating space for the strange, the sensual, and the subversive. O.J. Morgan is more than a rapper. He's a performance artist whose music confronts you with its truth. Zebra Cats doesn't beg for acceptance. He dares the industry to catch up. Khalif Diouf. Born Khalif Diouf on April 6, 1989 in Manhattan, New York. Liwaf burst into the spotlight with a sound and presence that hip-hop had never seen before. A classically trained dancer and Yale graduate, he brought physicality, intellect, and unapologetic queerness into a genre that had historically erased artists like him. In 2012, his breakout track, Woot, went viral. The video featured Liwaf confidently twerking in short shorts and rapping about his attraction to men with raw, clever wordplay. In an industry that often tolerated queerness only when cloaked in metaphors, Liwaf made it undeniably visible. His persona, fierce, flamboyant, and fearless. But Liwaf wasn't just about shock, he was substance. Mixtapes like Fly Zone and Treehouse blended trap electro and experimental beats with biting political commentary. He didn't shy away from calling out double standards, even publicly criticizing the praise given to straight allies like Macklemore, while queer black artists remained sidelined. In 2015, he released his full-length album, Riot Boy, an electrifying and socially conscious record produced with collaborators like Sophie and Dev Hynes. The album tackled everything from police brutality to body image while staying true to Lil Wayne's club-driven roots. Though major labels often didn't know how to market him, Lil Wayne's impact stretched far beyond commercial charts. He opened the door for a new wave of queer rappers by refusing to compromise. Whether dancing in heels, calling out hypocrisy, or spitting bars that flipped expectations, he created a lane that didn't exist before and dared others to follow. Khalif Diouf never asked to fit in. As Lil Wayne, he made space by being entirely himself, bold, complex, and unbothered. He turned queerness into a revolution, one beat, one lyric, one step at a time. Kamaya Ayawa, known professionally as Moor Mother, was born on November 19, 1979 in Aberdeen, Maryland. She's not just a musician. She's a poet, activist, experimental noise artist, and academic who fuses music and politics into a single searing force. Her sound, often described as Afro-futurist noise rap, is less about melody and more about message, urgent, confrontational, and unapologetically black and queer. Moor Mother first gained widespread attention with her 2016 debut, Fetish Bones, a sonic riot that blended field recordings, punk distortion, and spoken word into a visceral indictment of racism, gender violence, and historical trauma. She doesn't make music for mass appeal. She makes it for truth-telling and survival. A proudly queer woman, Ayawa challenges all forms of structural oppression, including homophobia within black spaces and racism within queer ones. Her work explores intersections of queerness, time, ancestry, and displacement. Through albums like Analog Fluids of Sonic Black Holes and Jazz Codes, she reimagines the future by confronting the past. She is also a university lecturer, a founding member of the Black Quantum Futurism Collective, and a regular fixture at art biennials and international music festivals. Her performances are part protest, part ceremony spaces where sonic chaos meets ancestral healing. Kamaya Ayawa isn't looking for applause. She's looking for awakening. Through her fierce commitment to resistance and innovation, Moor Mother proves that music can do more than entertain. It can agitate, educate, and transform. Louis Kevin Celestine, known to the world as K-Tranada, was born on August 25, 1992 in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, and raised in Montreal, Canada. A master of rhythm and vibe, he built his name on a signature blend of hip-hop, funk, R&B, and house music, effortlessly cool, irresistibly danceable, and deeply original. Breaking into the scene as a teenage producer on SoundCloud, K-Tranada quickly gained a reputation for infectious remixes and genre-blurring beats. His debut album 99.9%, 2016, featuring artists like Anderson .Paak and Aluna George, won Canada's prestigious Polaris Music Prize and set a new standard for electronic production. But behind his meteoric rise, K-Tranada struggled privately. In 2016, at the height of his success, he came out as gay in an interview with The Fader. He admitted that hiding his sexuality while touring and building his brand had caused deep anxiety and depression. It was hard for me to be proud, he confessed, but coming out changed everything. His second album, Bubba, 2019, was not just a critical and commercial success, it was a celebration of self. Featuring collaborators like Kali Uchis, Pharrell Williams, and Van Jess, the album won the Grammy Award for Best Dance or Electronic Album and positioned K-Tranada as a queer trailblazer in a genre long dominated by straight white men. What sets K-Tranada apart isn't just his technical brilliance, it's his quiet courage. He doesn't rely on spectacle or controversy. He simply creates beats that move people while standing fully in his truth. His presence in the mainstream electronic world has made space for other black queer producers to thrive openly. Louis Kevin Celestine didn't just remix music, He remixed identity in real time and in doing so built a legacy grounded in rhythm resilience and radical honesty. Which of these 25 powerful artists surprised you the most? Do you think the music industry has truly evolved to embrace queer Black voices? Or is there still more work to be done? At Legends of Black Excellence, we celebrate truth, talent, and the courage to be seen. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's talk about it. If this video inspired you or taught you something new, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue to honor the legacies of those who broke barriers and made history by simply being themselves.